Freighter pilot finds space pirates, transporting alien scientists. Now he doesn't know what to do. The hush of the void was Callum's only constant, and he clung to it. 5 years ferrying freight across the fringe sectors had taught him that quiet meant control. No alarms, no desperate voices, no unwelcome surprises. Just the soft ping of his ship's guidance system and the steady drone of the engines. Slouched in the worn pilot's seat of the Wayfarer, a battered old Earth-built freighter, Callum watched the stars streak by, savoring the predictability. This was his world now, solitary, safe, unchanging. He exhaled, boots propped against the console, eyes following the blue-white streaks through the viewport. Routine was a balm, cargo stowed, manifests logged, trajectory plotted. There was comfort in the cycle. Outside, the galaxy was chaos. Inside, he was king of his little, battered realm. Then the stillness fractured. The comms panel flickered crimson, bathing the cockpit in a lurid glow. Callum straightened, a pulse of adrenaline snapping him alert. A scrambled, urgent distress beacon crackled through the static, barely intelligible but insistent. The code was odd, fragmented, half lost in the interference, but the cadence was wrong for a typical pirate trap. He narrowed his eyes, fingers dancing over the console to isolate the signal. He'd seen pirates use tricks like this before, baiting the reckless with fake cries for help, but this wasn't random gibberish. The rhythm nagged at him, sparking a memory he thought he'd buried with his old life. Federation recon cipher, obsolete for years, phased out before the border wars. Whoever was sending it was either desperate or clever, or both. He almost let it go. After the last time, after the blood and betrayal, he'd sworn off heroics for good. But the code was unmistakable, and the notion of leaving someone out there, someone who might have been like him, gnawed at him. He sighed, pushing aside the old pain as he ran a quick scan of the beacon's source. 2 ships appeared on the scope, locked together in the cold silence of space. One was a nimble, sharply angled craft, Vosari in design, all jagged wings and predatory lines, a pirate staple in these sectors. The other was hulking, unfamiliar, built for size rather than speed. The raider latched to the larger like a parasite, power signatures spiking between their hulls. Boarding, looting, extraction, classic piracy, unfolding right on his doorstep. The scan results made his blood run cold. 8 life signatures, all clustered in containment fields deep in the larger ship. Living cargo, slavery, the oldest stain in these lawless fringes, especially for rare or exotic species. The Federation condemned it, but out here, their voice was a whisper. His jaw set, muscles tightening. He wasn't a crusader, but the idea of those beings, whatever they were, sold into bondage twisted his gut. He made his choice in the space of a breath. His hands moved quickly, plotting a covert approach, the Wayfarer's stealth plating flickering to life. He slipped into his old recon armor, the once proud insignia dulled by time, and checked his pulse carbine. The ship glided silent and unseen, hugging the shadows of the larger vessel. He found an unsecured airlock, heart pounding as he cycled the hatch and stepped into the unknown. Inside, the alien ship was vast and frigid, corridors built for giants. The air bit at him, metallic and thin. He crept through the gloom, helmet sensors sweeping for motion. Distant voices echoed, rough, human accents, pirates grumbling about the Sapphire One and the Horned Freaks. He pressed against the cold alloy wall, peering through frosted glass. Behind the barrier, the captives slumped in energy pods, blue-skinned, scaled, feathered, all manner of sentient beings, each sedated and helpless. He should have just gathered evidence, sent it to the authorities, and left. That was the plan. Then a pirate slammed a fist against a blue-skinned pod, the impact sending a shudder through the figure inside. Something in Callum snapped. The old soldier, the one he tried to forget, surged to the surface. He stepped into the open, voice steady and hard. "Back away from the pods," he ordered, carbine leveled. "Federation recon, you're violating the Sentient Rights Accord." The pirates spun, startled, hands flying to their weapons. The first shot rang out, searing the air. Callum moved like the years hadn't passed, efficient, relentless. 3 quick shots dropped the closest threat. Another pirate lunged at him, but Callum sidestepped, slamming the butt of his carbine into the man's jaw. In moments, it was over. 4 pirates down, 2 more scrambling for the hatch. He herded them at gunpoint into a storage bay, locking the door behind them. The last 2 he found on the raider, rifling through logs and trying to wipe the evidence. He stunned them both, then copied every file, every manifest, every ugly detail for proof. Hauling the pods to the Wayfarer was agony. The corridors were narrow, the pods heavy and awkward, especially the last, which contained an enormous crystalline being whose weight strained the sled's grav motors. Sweat stung his eyes, breath ragged behind the visor, but he didn't stop. He set the pirate's ship on autopilot, course locked for the nearest Federation outpost, logs and video evidence transmitted and attached. Back aboard the Wayfarer, he sealed the hatch, every nerve buzzing with adrenaline. 8 unknown aliens in his hold, each a risk he hadn't planned for. The med console flickered with vital signs, 1 for each pod, a dizzying variety of physiology and needs. The ship's AI, an old, soothing monotone, advised reviving them 1 at a time. He started with the first. The stasis field hummed, then released with a hiss of cold vapor. A blue-skinned, slender alien girl unfolded, blinking against the harsh lights. Amber eyes, flecked with gold, darted between him and the room, her pointed ears trembling. He knelt, hands open and visible, voice soft. "You're safe now," he assured her, activating the translator. The collar at her throat sparked, then fell away. She touched her neck, relief mingling with fear. "The others?" she whispered, the words strange but clear through the translation matrix. "They're here. I'll wake them," Callum promised. He moved to the next pod, fingers still trembling from the fight. Suddenly, the ship's proximity alarm screamed, a piercing wail that cut through the tense calm. He raced to the cockpit. Another vessel, armed and fast, was closing on their position. The partial distress call from the pirates had drawn new hunters. He glanced back. The blue alien, still unsteady, met his eyes. Understanding flickered there. Danger was coming. She nodded, lips set in a grim line. No more hesitation. He triggered the revival sequence for all pods, voices and movement filling the hold as the aliens woke. He threw the Wayfarer into emergency jump prep, hands flying across the controls. "Hold on," he called, as hyperspace blossomed outside the viewport, the enemy ship locked on their tail. In the cramped hold behind him, 8 confused passengers clung to consciousness as their unlikely savior hurled them all into the unknown. The Wayfarer dropped out of hyperspace with a jolt that rattled its aging hull, shuddering as though protesting the violence of the jump. Callum steadied himself at the helm, fighting the inertia in his bones. The stars outside blurred into the violet and emerald swirls of a nebula, a hiding place, at least for now. Plasma clouds boiled beyond the viewport, painting shifting light across the cramped cockpit. A shadow in the hatchway caught his attention. The blue-skinned alien girl, now freed from her pod and collar, stood tall despite the fear flickering in her amber eyes. She stepped inside, her presence cautious but dignified. "I am Lysara," she said, the translator at her throat warbling for a moment before smoothing her words. Behind her, the others filed in 1 by 1, some limping, all bearing the ragged marks of captivity. They clustered near the door, wary yet desperate for direction. The translator whispered their names in Callum's ear as each introduced themselves. "Jex," said a spindly insectoid, mandibles twitching, 6 limbs folded tight across its chest. Its carapace was scored and battered, but its eyes glinted with intelligence. "I was technician before. Vera," announced the next, a silver-skinned humanoid with powerful shoulders and steady hands. Vira's voice was deep, almost metallic, and her gaze held a quiet resilience. "Tolan," grunted a tawny-furred being with feline features and a lashing tail. "Scout," he added, as if needing to justify his presence. "Rin," murmured a translucent, almost ghostly figure, shifting colors with each breath. They kept close to the wall, fingers flickering in intricate patterns. "A medic," the translator suggested. "Quill," piped up the smallest of the group, large dark eyes taking in everything. Quill's delicate frame trembled, but curiosity fought to overcome fear. "I watch. I see things." Callum's gaze softened as he regarded them. "You're safe. I won't let anyone take you," he said, voice firm but gentler than he'd intended. But the question pressed in on him, tightening his chest. Where could he possibly take them? The Federation's grasp barely reached these wild sectors. Any safe harbor was a gamble. Before he could voice his uncertainty, the final stasis pod in the cargo bay hissed, releasing a swirl of chilled vapor. The air took on a shimmering quality, a hush falling over the others. Lysara's eyes widened, awe transforming her features. She stepped forward, motioning for Callum to follow. He entered the cargo bay, wary but compelled. The pod's doors unfurled, revealing a figure unlike any he'd seen. Tall, almost regal, with skin that glimmered opalescent, shifting from violet to pearl in the nebula's light. Filaments of glowing blue and gold traced intricate patterns along the being's elongated limbs. As it stepped onto the deck, every other former captive bowed their head, even the skeptical Tolan. The translator whirred, struggling, then pronounced, "Orion." The resonance of the word vibrated deeper than language, a name and a title woven together. Orion extended a 6-fingered hand toward Callum, palm open. Instinct warred with caution, but Callum reached out. The moment their skin met, a surge of sensation flooded him. Starlight, distant worlds, the ache of loss and hope, and, most of all, a piercing clarity. Emotions, memories, not his own, flooded his mind and then receded. He gasped, staggering back, breath stolen. "Connection, soul link," the translator supplied. Orion's eyes, multifaceted, shifting in hue, regarded him with serene intensity. "You, truthful," came the mechanical voice, translating for Orion. Callum felt raw, exposed, but also seen for the first time in years. "I try to be," he said, voice rough. A sudden, insistent klaxon blared through the ship, red lights strobing along the corridor. The Wayfarer's AI chimed, emotionless. "Critical coolant loss. Systems overheating. Emergency protocol required." "Damn it," Callum muttered, spinning toward the engineering readout. The escape through hyperspace had been rough on the old freighter, more than its patched systems could bear. He pulled up a scan, eyes flicking across the data. Coolant levels were dropping fast, the engine's core temperature spiking. "We're leaking coolant," he announced, jaw clenched. "If we stay here, we'll cook. If we try another jump, the drive could blow." Jack scuttled forward, clicking rapidly. "Show schematics. I can help. I know these systems, yes. We must land." Callum nodded, pulling up a map of the nearby sector. An asteroid moon, pitted and barren, spun lazily in the nebula's embrace. It offered nothing but rock and a thin, tenuous atmosphere. No settlements, no signals, just a place to hide and maybe patch the ship. "It's our best shot," Callum said. "Hold on." The Wayfarer groaned as he guided her into descent. The nebula's energy buffeted the hull, turbulence rattling every bolt. The memory of another landing, years ago, a Federation op gone wrong, innocents lost to fire and vacuum, gnawed at him. His knuckles whitened on the controls, breath shallow. Lisara slid into the co-pilot seat, her hand hovering near his on the console. Her touch was barely there, a silent offer of comfort. He didn't move away. "Easy," she murmured, golden eyes fixed on the viewport. "You bring us through." The surface rushed up, gray rock looming beneath the swirling nebula. With a teeth-rattling jolt, the Wayfarer slammed down, skidding along a stretch of fractured stone before settling, battered but intact. Silence returned, broken only by the hissing of cooling metal. As the dust settled, the survivors gathered in the narrow galley, exhaustion and adrenaline mingling in the cramped space. Jex was already at work, limbs darting in all directions as he pried open access panels and muttered about bypasses and thermal seals. Vera helped lift heavy modules, her strength belying her calm exterior. Rin organized emergency supplies, checking the vitals of the others with spectral fingers. Callum found himself standing beside Lisara at the viewport, watching the nebula's light flicker across the asteroid plain. "We are more than captives," Lisara said quietly, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace. "Scientists, explorers, survivors, not cargo, not slaves." Callum studied her profile, struck by the calm conviction in her voice. "I know that now," he replied. "You have people waiting for you?" She shook her head. "Some of us, perhaps. Some have no home left. The raiders destroyed many things." He looked out at the endless dark, something uncoiling inside his chest. For the first time since the border wars, hope stirred. A faint, uncertain spark, but real. "We'll find a way," he said, meaning it. Night came quickly on the asteroid, shadows stretching long and blue under twin moons. The air outside was thin and biting, but Callum moved quietly, pulse carbine slung over his shoulder. Lisara walked beside him, silent but alert. They crested a ridge, keeping low, eyes on the horizon. A distant glint caught his eye. Against the indigo sky, a new ship entered the thin atmosphere. Sleek, predatory, its light searching. Callum's heart thudded. He crouched behind a broken outcrop, Lisara at his side. "Why do this?" she whispered, voice barely audible. "Why risk yourself for strangers?" He met her gaze, the moon's light limning her features in silver and blue. "Because no being deserves chains," he said simply. Lisara studied him, something searching in her eyes. "You carry your own chains, Callum. I see them." He looked away, jaw tight. "We all do, I guess." Before she could press further, a flare ignited on the horizon, casting a blood-red glare across the asteroid's surface. More hunters, pirates or worse, drawn by the Wayfarer's battered signal, homing in. Lisara grabbed his arm, urgency in her grip. "We must go." He nodded, pulse quickening. Together they hurried back toward the ship. There was no time for introspection, no time for regret. The night air filled with the thrum of engines as danger closed in. Side by side, Callum and Lisara rejoined the others, preparing to run. One battered ship, 8 survivors, and no guarantee of tomorrow. But they would fight for it, together. As dawn crept over the barren moon, the thin light picked out the jagged edges of the rocks, painting the ash-gray landscape in cold relief. Callum crouched at the mouth of the cave, eyes scanning the wasteland beyond where the Wayfarer sat alone on the cracked plain, a deliberate lure. Vapor trailed from its wounded hull, a beacon to any hunter with a scanner. He listened for the faintest echo of engines or the crunch of boots on stone, but the only sound was his own breath. Inside the labyrinthine caves, the refugees moved with a quiet urgency. Jex, nimble and tireless, scuttled between the shadows, antennae twitching as he and Vera pulled apart a discarded grav sled for engine parts. "Fuel cell salvageable," Jex reported, mandibles clicking. If we get back to the ship, we might have thrust. Not much, but enough to run. Vera's silver hands were stained with grease, her heavy frame braced against a makeshift workbench. We'll need every advantage. They've landed at least 3 ships, she said, voice low. Her eyes flicked to the entrance, always measuring the odds. Rin, the translucent medic, hovered over Orion. The opalescent being sat cross-legged, luminous skin shifting in rhythm with a slow, meditative breath. Quill, quiet but attentive, arranged supplies and kept watch, his enormous eyes darting from Orion to the flickering shadows. The cave air glowed with the faint radiance of Orion's presence, a calm in the storm. Lysara moved among them, offering steady words in a dozen tongues. She adapted quickly, translating instructions and soothing nerves, her touch as reassuring as her voice. It was she who signaled Callum over, her expression serious. "We're surrounded," Lysara said. "Toland's scouts saw at least 2 more ships touch down to the north. We have no way out except the old lava tubes, and if they sweep the caves, we're caught." Callum's mind raced, calculating routes and odds. "We'll have to outthink them," he said. "Delay, distract, and pray." In a quiet alcove, he pulled out a battered comm and keyed in a frequency he hadn't used in years. The static made his skin prickle. He sent a short, desperate message. "Marin, Fringe Moon, surrounded. Request immediate extraction. Lives at stake." No answer came, just the endless hiss of the void. He pocketed the comm, hope thin as smoke. Moments later, Lysara approached him again, her expression changed. She cradled something in her hand, a pendant, crystalline and alive with pulsing light. She hesitated, then pressed it into Callum's palm. The stone throbbed, warmth spreading through his skin. "There's something you must know," she said, voice trembling but resolute. "Orion is not just rare. Orion is sovereign, a living link to an ancient race. If they take Orion, it's not only us who suffer." Callum stared at the pendant, and as his thumb brushed its surface, his mind exploded with vision. Worlds spun past him, lush jungles, golden oceans, great cities strung between stars. A fleet of living ships rose from a crystalline planet, their hulls singing in unison. He saw Orion standing at the heart of it, not as a ruler, but as a conduit, a bridge between peoples, a keeper of harmony. Callum gasped, staggered by the torrent of sensation. This is a map, technology, history. Why show me this?" Lysara's eyes glistened in the cave's half-light. "Because you need to understand. Orion is why we were hunted, why the pirates risk so much. This pendant holds enough to shift the balance of power, make a tyrant, or forge an alliance. Orion's people were called wardens. Without them, the galaxy falls to chaos." He looked at Orion, who met his gaze with serene, knowing eyes. The others, listening in, realized the weight of their mission. They weren't just refugees, they were guardians of something that could remake the galaxy. The cave shook with the distant boom of engines. Dust sifted down, and a nervous ripple moved through the group. Toland, breathless, slipped in from a side tunnel. "Hunter ship landed nearby, heavily armed. They've got scanners. They'll find us." Callum's pulse quickened, the old soldier's instincts taking charge. "We can use the pendant," he said, voice low. "It emits a unique energy signature, right?" Jex nodded, already following his thinking. "If we rig it with a signal booster, we can create a decoy, lead them away from us, and the real Orion." Callum turned to Lysara. "Get everyone ready for an evac. If Marin answers, we need to be mobile. If not, we run, and we make them chase shadows." Lysara's jaw tightened, her resolve steeling. "Understood. I'll get the group moving." As she drifted off, Orion rose from meditation and approached Callum. The being's presence was overwhelming, radiating empathy and sorrow. Orion reached out, placing a delicate hand against Callum's chest. A vision slammed through him, more powerful than the pendants. He saw a web of civilizations, shining strands linking world to world. At the center, the wardens moved like currents, their harmony holding back darkness. Then a surge of chaos, wardens falling, worlds torn by greed, balance unraveling. The final image, Callum himself, a single thread in the tapestry, holding the future's weight. Orion's voice echoed in his mind, wordless but clear. Protect us, and you protect all. Callum staggered as the vision faded, breath ragged. He locked eyes with Orion, understanding passing silently between them. He wasn't just saving lives, he was shielding the fragile future of countless worlds. Outside, engines roared closer, their vibrations rattling the cave walls. Vera and Jex loaded gear into sacks. Tolan checked the perimeter, and Rin cradled a weak quill in their arms. Lysara returned, face drawn but determined. Everyone's ready. Callum glanced at the battered comm one last time. No response from Marin. They were on their own. Lysara lingered, searching his face. You could trade Orion for your own safety, for all of us. He shook his head, voice unyielding. That's not who I am. Not anymore. She nodded, something warm and fierce flaring in her eyes. Good, because I trust you, Callum. He knelt by Jex, helping to rig the pendant to a power cell. You sure this will work? Jex's mandibles flexed in a semblance of a smile. It will fool their scanners. If they're greedy for power, they'll follow the signal. A tremor ran through the cave. The hunters were close, searchlights cutting through the gaps in the rock, voices barking orders in guttural Vosari. Callum rose, sweeping his gaze over the survivors, their faces drawn but determined, the bond between them forged by fire and hope. Grab what you can, we move in 2 minutes, no looking back. He met Lysara's gaze. She crossed the distance, her hand finding his, a silent promise exchanged between them. In that moment, Callum felt the years of isolation and regret peel away, replaced by purpose, by connection. She squeezed his hand, her words a whisper meant only for him. Together. He nodded, shoulders squaring. Together. As the engines thundered outside and searchlights swept the cave mouth, Callum led his strange new family through the winding tunnels, Orion's light guiding their way. Behind them, the decoy pendant blinked like a beacon, drawing their pursuers deeper into the maze. They vanished into the alien night, hope and danger burning in their hearts. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, they faced it as one. The caves became a temporary haven, the jagged stone walls echoing with the mingled voices of hope and fear. Callum moved through the flickering torchlight, his mind already mapping escape routes, fallback positions, choke points for defense. In the cavern's main chamber, the survivors gathered what little they had: tools, rations, weapons improvised from scavenged metal and circuitry. Here, survival meant preparation. Jex and Vera hunched over the remnants of a scavenged engine, wires and components spread around them like a metallic nest. Jex's limbs darted and clicked as he soldered a new power relay, his antennae vibrating with focus. Give me 2 more hours and we'll have shield dampeners ready, he chirped, not looking up. Vera, her broad silver hands surprisingly gentle, reinforced a power cell with a strip of hull plating. We'll need these if they breach the inner tunnels, she said, her low voice betraying neither fear nor doubt. Tolan, ever restless, vanished into the winding corridors. His tawny form melted into shadow as he scouted the outer passages, ears flicking for the faintest hint of movement. Periodically, he returned with terse reports: enemy numbers, weapons, their shifting positions. They're probing, but not committing yet. We have maybe 1 night before a real push, he warned, eyes narrowing. Lysara, quick to adapt, assumed the role of teacher and leader among the group. In the cavern's open spaces, she organized the others into defensive drills: how to move quietly, how to fight as a unit. She demonstrated disarming techniques, her blade a flash of silver blue as she spun through the motions. Callum watched her, struck by the fierce grace in every movement, the way she coaxed strength from even the most timid. Quill and Rin listened closely, mimicking the forms. Even Vera cracked a rare smile as Lysara corrected her stance. Between drills and watch shifts, Callum and Lysara found moments to talk, sometimes in hushed tones as they patched wounds, other times as they shared a canteen, backs pressed to the same stone. In the flicker of firelight, Lysara studied him, her golden-flecked eyes gentle but probing. "Why do you hide behind these walls, Callum?" she asked one night, voice soft enough that only he could hear. He hesitated, then let the truth slip through. "Every choice leaves a scar. I thought solitude was strength, that if I kept everyone out, I couldn't fail anyone again. But now, I see unity as power. Alone, I would have been dead days ago." Lysara smiled, warmth in her gaze. She touched his hand, her skin cool but electric. "Then let us unite. Together we build hope from the wreckage." He squeezed her hand, feeling a weight lift. For the first time, the darkness around him seemed less absolute. The uneasy peace shattered hours later. An alarm, a thin, keening note, echoed down the tunnels. Tolan burst into the chamber, breathless. "They've breached the outer tunnels. 15, maybe 20, Vosari mercs and slaver droids. They're coming." Callum's eyes snapped to Lysara. She nodded, the two moving as one. "Positions!" she called. The survivors melted into their stations, every motion a testament to the trust they'd built. The enemy advanced, their boots pounding on the stone, flashlights slashing through the darkness. Jex triggered a tripwire. The corridor exploded in sparks, dropping 2 droids. Vera braced a barricade, her muscles straining as she wedged it into place. Rin slid between the wounded triage kit at the ready, while Quill relayed updates along the comm. Callum took point at the choke, his pulse carbine humming. Lysara moved at his side, blade drawn, eyes alight. In the chaos, they moved back to back, covering each other, reading every shift in the battle like a dance. A slaver charged, roaring. Callum dropped him with 2 precise shots, then spun as another rounded the corner. Lysara met the attacker with a slash of her blade, the alien's weapon clattering to the floor. Sparks flew, smoke thickened, and still they held. The aliens worked in harmony. Jex and Vera coordinated traps and fallback lines. Tolan relayed enemy movements, and the rest provided cover and support. Each time the attackers surged, they met a wall of resistance, makeshift but unbreakable. For a moment, it felt like the tide would never turn. But after a fierce skirmish, blades flashing, plasma rounds searing the cave walls, the enemy began to falter. Calls for retreat echoed as slavers dragged their wounded from the tunnels. Silence descended, broken only by the rasp of breath and the hiss of burning electronics. Callum checked the defenders, his voice steady. "Sound off. Everyone all right?" Relief swept through him as each responded, battered but alive. In the aftermath, Callum found Lysara by a shattered wall, moonlight slanting through a crack overhead. She wiped blood from her blade, her shoulders trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. He knelt beside her, voice rough with feeling. "I never thought I'd fight alongside someone like you," he admitted, gaze lingering on her face. Lysara met his eyes, her touch feather-light as she pressed her palm to his cheek. "Your courage is our strength, Callum. We all draw from you." Their eyes held, a silent promise, deeper than words. A chime from Orion broke the spell. The opalescent being stood in the chamber's heart, light radiating in subtle waves. "Extraction is possible," Orion announced, voice resonant, harmonics blending with the stone. "A corridor to my homeworld is open, but it will not last. We must hold until the window stabilizes." The group rallied, determination burning in every face. The pirates, sensing desperation, regrouped for a final assault. The cave shook as explosives hammered the outer barricades. Callum's commands rang clear. "Fall back to secondary positions. Jex, set the charges. Lysara, you're with me. As the enemy stormed the tunnels, the defenders responded as one. Lysara and Callum fought side by side, every motion practiced, every glance understood. Vera and Tolan blocked entryways. Jex's traps exploded in dazzling bursts. Quill relayed tactical feeds. Rin patched the wounded without hesitation. The last wave crashed against them, mercenaries shrieking, droids sparking, the air thick with smoke and fear. Callum moved with deadly calm, his aim unerring. Lysara's blade danced, arcs of silver and blue. When the final attacker fell, silence flooded the tunnels, broken only by the defenders' ragged breaths. Callum drew himself up, voice carrying through the battered chamber. We fight for a future worth living, for freedom, for each other. Orion approached, laying a glowing hand on Callum's shoulder. The way is open, Orion intoned. We must leave now. The group moved quickly, gathering what supplies they could. Jex and Vera slung their toolkits, Tolan guided the way, Quill and Rin supported the wounded, Orion's light leading them through the twisting passages. Outside, a gentle shimmer marked the corridor to safety, an alien construct of energy and hope. At the threshold, Callum paused beside Lysara. Their hands found each other's, fingers entwined. They stood together, changed and unbroken, partnership forged in adversity and sealed by unspoken vows. Around them, the survivors filed into the light, leaving the scars of battle behind. Together, Callum and Lysara stepped forward, into a future they would build, side by side. The Wayfarer, patched up and humming with new life, dove headlong into the heart of a stormy nebula. Lightning arced between the swirling clouds, illuminating the battered freighter as it twisted through impossible currents. The controls bucked beneath Callum's hands, but this time he wasn't alone. Lysara sat beside him in the co-pilot's seat, her slender fingers gliding over ancient star charts projected in blue-gold light. She plotted their course through the chaos, her voice steady and sure. "Starwind shifts here," she murmured, pointing to a swirl on the display. "If we cut starboard, we'll ride the eddy." Callum trusted her guidance, though every instinct screamed at him to play it safe. He flicked a glance her way. "You're sure about this?" Lysara smiled, golden-flecked eyes luminous in the storm's glow. "I am. Trust your instincts, Callum." She reached over, her hand resting lightly on his. The touch grounded him, a reassurance, a promise. Their bond deepened with each close call, each challenge they faced together. Even in the maelstrom, Callum found comfort in the rhythm of her presence. The ship pitched, and he tensed, but Lysara's grip steadied him. "Breathe," she whispered. "Let the ship feel you." Callum did, and the Wayfarer responded, the old vessel weaving through plasma currents as if reborn. Outside, the nebula's fury intensified, obscuring all but the faintest hint of their destination. Suddenly, alarms wailed. An ominous fleet flickered into view, dozens of sleek predatory ships materializing from the storm, blocking every escape vector. The Wayfarer shuddered as their sensors probed her hull. Callum's jaw clenched. Blockade. They must have tracked Orion's signal. Lysara's face hardened with resolve. "We are close. There is a way, if we trust each other." She unclasped the pendant from her neck, its crystalline facets pulsing with energy. The storm's colors seemed to funnel into its heart. "Will it work?" Callum asked, voice low. Lysara's reply was fierce, unwavering. "With both of us, yes." She pressed the pendant into his palm, and together they focused, her hands guiding, his mind opening. The pendant's light expanded, enveloping the cockpit, the ancient star charts shifting and rewriting themselves. "There," Lysara breathed, "a hidden route, through the rift." Her gaze never left his. "I trust you with my life." Callum met her eyes, the words raw with meaning. "I trust you with mine." In that moment, the nebula seemed to part before them, a fissure of clear space opening between the hostile ships. Guided by instinct and the pendant's power, Callum piloted the Wayfarer into the breach. The hull vibrated, alarms flared, but Lysara's voice anchored him. "Steady! Now!" They broke through, the blockade dissolving behind them. The nebulous storms faded, revealing a field of shimmering ships, vessels unlike any Callum had ever seen. They floated in perfect harmony, hulls radiant with shifting colors and intricate patterns. This was Orion's people, a fleet both ancient and new, a welcome and a warning. The calm crackled. Orion's voice came melodic and serene. "Welcome, friends. The time for hiding is past. You are among allies." Callum stared in awe as the fleet parted, ships bowing in a dance of light. The Wayfarer glided at the heart of the formation, guided by unseen hands. Lysara reached for his hand, her grip tight with joy. "We made it," she whispered. Orion greeted them at the docking bay, its opalescent form shining brighter than ever. The other refugees filed out behind Callum, their eyes wide with wonder. Orion approached, extending both hands. "Callum, protector and envoy," Orion intoned, voice resonating through the air. "You have brought hope across the stars. Today you become a bridge between worlds." Lysara stood at Callum's side, translating for the others. "They welcome you as one of their own. You have earned their trust." Callum swallowed, overwhelmed by the moment. The crew of the Wayfarer, Jex, Vera, Tolan, Quill, Rin, gathered around, each changed by the journey. Their hardships had forged them into something more than survivors. Now, they were witnesses to the dawn of something greater. A procession led them through the crystalline corridors of Orion's flagship. Light refracted in rainbows along the walls, casting shifting shadows. At the heart of the vessel, they entered a vast hall, its ceiling arching high above. The leaders of Orion's world waited there, tall, graceful beings, each marked by unique colors and glowing filaments. The council's voices melded in harmonious speech. "Callum of Earth, you have risked all for those not your own. Will you represent humanity, forging an alliance with our people?" Callum glanced at Lysara, her pride shining through every line of her face. He drew a breath, humbled by the enormity. "If my actions can unite us, if my voice can build trust, then I accept." A leader stepped forward, presenting a token, a crystalline band, etched with the symbols of Orion's people. Callum accepted it, feeling the weight and promise of what it meant. The band's light pulsed in time with his heartbeat, binding him to a destiny far beyond the solitary path he'd once known. Orion spoke again, voice soft but powerful. "With this, you become our bridge, a promise of peace, of hope." The hall erupted in gentle song, the chorus of an entire world welcoming him. The other survivors joined in, their voices tentative at first, then swelling with confidence. Callum looked to Lysara, her eyes bright with unshed tears, pride and affection radiating from her. She stepped close, her words for him alone. "This alliance will shape the future. You changed the fate of worlds, Callum. Mine most of all." He reached for her, their hands entwined as the council's song washed over them. "I didn't do it alone," he whispered. "You showed me what I could become." Lysara's smile was radiant. "Together then, as partners." Callum nodded, the last pieces of his old solitude falling away. He stood tall in the crystalline hall, surrounded by friends, united by purpose. He understood with perfect clarity that every choice, every scar, had brought him here, where his journey and Lysara's entwined, where hope was no longer a distant dream, but a living, breathing future. A new haven blossomed on a reclaimed world, a beacon for those who had suffered too long in the dark. The land was raw, the forests young, but hope took root in every stone and every beam that rose beneath alien skies. At the center of it all moved Callum, sleeves rolled up, his voice and vision shaping the future as surely as any tool. He coordinated efforts between humans and aliens, his days a blur of meetings, building, and listening. "We're building a home, not just a shelter," he reminded the others whenever doubts flickered. Patrols moved through the perimeter, their steps confident but never harsh. Protocols ensured safety, but the gates always remained open, welcoming, never forbidding. Jex proved invaluable, setting up a web of sensors and comms with his many nimble limbs, his cheerful chittering now a familiar comfort. "All clear on the North Ridge," he would report, antennae twitching. Vira, ever the pillar of strength, organized supply caches and rationing, working with Quill, who cataloged each shipment with wide-eyed diligence and a knack for languages. They brought order to chaos, their differences forging a stronger whole. Lysara, her presence serene yet commanding, worked with Orion's engineers. She learned their crystalline technology with an ease that amazed even them, adapting it to fit the settlement's needs. In the evenings, her voice carried over the camp as she encouraged tired workers, her calm leadership inspiring all who listened. Orion, sometimes distant, sometimes intimately involved, lent wisdom and guidance that transcended words, its light a subtle promise at the heart of the haven. Refugees arrived from distant systems, some battered and wary, others radiant with hope. No one was turned away. Callum stood at the entrance, shaking every hand, offering each new arrival a place and a purpose. The haven thrived, growing from a rough outpost into a vibrant tapestry of cultures and dreams. Languages intermingled, traditions mingled, and laughter slowly replaced fear. Children played in gardens where once there was only dust. Artists painted murals along the new walls, scenes of lost homeworlds, of imagined tomorrows. Scientists built greenhouses, healers tended to wounds both visible and hidden. At night, the campfires flickered with stories, and the stars overhead felt closer than ever before. Yet Callum found little time for rest. Often, he walked the boundary paths after dark, checking in with sentries, reassuring those still haunted by nightmares. He offered advice, a steadying word, sometimes simply a silent presence. Each evening, Lysara watched him go, her gaze following until he returned. One evening, as the sky blushed with sunset and the settlement's lights flickered to life, Lysara found Callum on a quiet ridge above the valley. He sat in the grass, boots caked in earth, eyes fixed on the horizon where two suns dipped toward the trees. She settled beside him, drawing her knees to her chest. For a while, neither spoke. Wind rustled the grass, bringing the sense of alien blossoms and fresh-turned soil. When Lysara finally broke the silence, her voice was gentle but searching. "Why stay with me?" she asked, her golden-flecked eyes holding his. "You could return to your own world, your own people." Callum let the question settle between them, honest and raw. "I thought being alone was safer," he admitted, voice roughened by memory. "But I've learned our strength is in connection. You showed me that. I choose you, because together we make something greater. I want to build this future with you, not just for others, but for us." Lysara's smile was radiant, her hand reaching for his. She laced her fingers through his, her touch a silent vow. "Then we walk this path together. Whatever comes, we face it as one." Their hands joined, they watched as the settlement below glowed with life and possibility. The walls no longer felt like barriers. They were the frame of something enduring. Days blurred into weeks, and the haven continued to grow. Callum and Lysara worked side by side, their partnership seamless, their love deepening with each new challenge. When conflicts arose, a misunderstanding between cultures, a shortage of supplies, they navigated them together, their unity a model for everyone around them. Word spread across the stars. Ships arrived, not just seeking safety, but carrying news. Hope was kindling in places long lost to fear. Other worlds sent envoys, eager to learn from the settlement's example. Orion's people pledged guardianship, and the Federation, tentative at first, opened a dialogue, inspired by Callum's leadership and Lysara's wisdom. At night, Callum and Lysara shared quiet moments in their modest quarters, the walls adorned with sketches of their journey. Sometimes they reminisced, laughing at the perils they had escaped, or simply held each other in silence, drawing strength from the closeness they'd once thought impossible. One dawn, as the first light gilded the valley, Callum and Lysara stood atop the highest hill overlooking the haven. The settlement sprawled beneath them, gardens blooming, solar arrays gleaming, people gathering for morning work. The sight filled Callum with a peace he had never known. "This is just the beginning," he said, voice steady. "All we've built. There's so much more ahead." Lysara squeezed his hand, leaning into his side. "Together, we've found purpose and created a legacy. Even in the vast dark, hope and love light the way." As the sun rose over their new world, painting the sky in gold and rose, Callum felt for the first time truly at home. His lonely path had transformed into a future of shared dreams, boundless possibility, and a love that crossed every star. Our story ends here. If you'd like to support us, you can use the Super Thanks button right under the video to leave a tip. It truly helps our team improve the quality of our work. We're grateful to each and every subscriber for being with us. Make sure you subscribe, press the like button, and tell us in the comments what stood out to you the most in this video. Your feedback means a lot to our team. You'll discover many more captivating stories on our channel. See you in the next one.